idea.
Well, this is okay. Here we are. All right. We are live. Here we go. Without further ado.
There we go.
All right. So we'll see. We got one watcher, and we'll just kind of. I always hate this part of live feeds when people are just like talking about nonsense and like, we'll get some other people on here. But
I think
I get it.
We'll have 12 people on here watching us, and 6 of them will be my friends just trolling.
Yeah, well, the other 6 will be my friends trolling. So yeah, it'll be.
Whoever was bailed, they already said, "Nah, I'm out."
They were gone. That was Tim. Tim left.
Maybe they saw the van and they just bounced.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can't. I wonder if the chat will pop up on the bottom or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I can see the chat, but I don't know.
I can't see it, but there's the chat right now, as far as I know. So.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you want to do? Give it like another minute or so?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have one pair of eyes, I think. I'm just talking to each other.
I'll post on my my Instagram, but I don't know how much we get out of this. Let's see here.
I mean, we're all married, right? We're all used to talking to a wall anyways. What's the difference?
Oh, I gotta find the link. Hold on. Let me jump on my phone here. Where's this thing at? Here we go. Oh, let's see. Oh, now I'm gonna be looking at the link. Share.
See that? Product placement.
Product placement. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, I product placemented as well.
Mm-hmm. I know, of course.
Let's see here.
I only did that to attract all of your import customers. They will all be coming to me now.
Hey, there's Perry. What's up, Perry?
What are you, an import guy?
It's a complicated answer. Let's put it that way.
Like you could be an import guy.
No, for a living, I work and/or deal with imports on a daily basis. But my personal car is not an import. But I do like them too. So I like both. I'm confused.
Yeah. See, he looks like a van guy.
What's that, Wayne? Looks like a van guy? Yes. I didn't need any introduction to know he was a van guy. True.
Oh, man.
So anyways, I guess we, introduction wise, you've got the Burnout Van, and I was thinking about this. Like, you got a lot of monikers. You got Burnout Van, you got Plumber's Crack. You never know what to at. You got to figure something out there.
So as I said, put your name in here. I was like, if I put Nick, nobody will even know who I am.
Right.
Most of these people don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had to look it up, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure his name's Nick, but
what's funny, I get messages on Instagram or something, and it'll be somebody like trying to sell something. It's like, Mr. Plumber's Crack is on there.
That's fantastic.
Love it.
Yeah. So you did Sick Week, and we'll dive into talking about that.
We did.
And but your big claim to fame thus far has been the burnout competitions, the Cletus stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, but backing up, not other than people that follow your Instagram and that you've posted on a couple of times, you got a Camaro that's like a 25.2 radial car or something, isn't it?
25.3 now. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I've had that car. Backstory on that. I've had that car since I was 13. So, like, I got that thing when I was 13 years old for Christmas, and it was just a total basket case. And the deal was, my parents are like, we'll pay for half and you pay for half. And that was their way of kind of keeping me out of trouble, because I had something to work towards. And, like, from the time I was 13, during the summers, I just went to work every day. And, like, one summer, oh, I'm losing you. You there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That might be me.
Yeah.
All right. I was trying to pull pictures, but it might not work. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so that thing, that was their way of keeping me out of trouble. Like, I worked every day during the summers, and during the school year I was in school, and like until I was turned 16, I couldn't race it. So my dad raced it. So their thing was like, we'd go to the track 2 nights a week if you want, but you got to have good grades. So as long as I had good grades, we got to go. I mean, it worked great. So I stayed out of trouble. I was a pretty decent kid. I never really had any issues. But that thing evolved. It was supposed to be something I was going to drive to school. And by the time I turned 16, it was running in the 12s. And, from there, things start like 2 weeks before I turned 16. We're at the track with it, and it pops a head gasket. It's like, all right, so we pull the heads off of it and realize that it's got one lifter that's just a quarter inch shorter than the rest. Took the length of the cam out, and it's this whole time we've been running on 7 cylinders, never even knew. So we pull the engine out, go to freshen it, and that's when I met Mike Ford, who's now still my engine builder today. That was 2006. So we ran that thing. He's like, well, I'll make it a 383. So we built a 383 for it and put it together. Like first time to the track, we drove it to the track. It went like 1320 to 108 on the engine, and put the bottle back on, and it was running in the low 12s pretty quick. I think we were running like 1220s with it, and before you knew it, it was running 1180s. So it's like, oh, we need to put a roll bar in this thing. So we put a roll bar in it, and the next thing you know, it's running 1160s and 1120s. Then we start playing with more nitrous, and then it's running 1080s. It's like, all right, well, now we got to upgrade it to a 10-point cage, and it just was a domino effect. And like to get into the 10s took forever. To get it in the 9s felt like it took years, which was probably about a year to get it in the 9s. After that, we went 990 at 135 with a pump gas, iron-headed small block with a 175 shot.
Wow.
Like, on 91 octane, no suspension really. It had garbage shocks. And we found I had 2 blown out shocks, and we finally put an engine in that made power. And so we went 990s. I sold it, sold the engine out of it, and we put a 12-to-1 383 together, had big AFR heads and all that. Then we started really putting nitrous to it. And like within 6-8 months, we were in the 8s with it.
Wow.
So from there, then we went 890s, then went 870s, and then we were running 850s. And then it was like, okay, now we're at the limit of what the cage would certify to, but there's no way that this thing will certify to that because it was always an afterthought. We never had any intention of the car going that fast. So like I sat in the car and my head was 2 inches above the top of the roll cage. Like it was not safe at all. So we decided we were going to pull it down and update the cage. And then my buddy had a car very similar to mine. He's like, oh, I'll call you out. We'll race for $100. I'm like, all right, whatever. So we show up at the track and I kicked the rod out of this thing in a burnout. It hydro locks. So basically it was a stock block 383. We had like 350 horse. We had an induction solutions kit on it. And we were spraying like 350 to it. And the stock block finally let go, cracked the cylinder wall, hydro lock, broke a piston, broke a valve. And basically I was like, all right, we'll pull the engine out and we're going to cut the cage out and start over. And then that was December of 2015. A buddy of mine did the cage with me. We made it. It's a 25.3, so it's 650 cert at like 3,200 pounds. And I was in the shop one night and a cutoff wheel bit me. Got my hand pretty good. And I couldn't work on it for like a month. And then after that, I just like totally lost motivation. Like we were working on this thing 3 nights a week, all weekend. And we got a lot done in 3 months. And then I just totally lost motivation. I met Amber, who's my fiance now, and it just wasn't as important anymore.
Right.
So I kind of abandoned it at his house for like 2 years, and he calls me and says, dude, you need to get this thing out of here. Back to my house, and it's been sitting in my garage since like, the picture just came up the other day on my phone. It's been in my garage since like 2019. Like, the car has not seen the light of day in almost 10 years. And it's like, when we won our first burnout event was Texas, and Texas Speed had sponsored that event. So like we won, not only I think we won $3,000 cash, and then Texas Speed kicked us a top end package. So like I got a Texas Speed, what is that? A PRC 255 CNC ported head set up, and then I've got the cam's actually in my cousin's car now, but like I've got a whole engine sitting at the house.
Wow.
That's actually builders. I got a 403 cubic inch LS, got Texas Speed rotating assembly, TSP heads. So like we have most of the stuff to put the car together. It's just we're far enough along on the cage to where I'm in over my head and I don't know how to finish it. So I just need, if I find a chassis guy that'll go, hey, we can finish it for this, I drop the car off tomorrow. Because I would love to get back racing it again. Like I have enough stuff to probably make the car go pretty well into the 7s with like parts I have laying around at this point. To acquire from upgrading things, and The van was supposed to be a spare parts build. It quickly turned into not a spare parts build.
Right. Well, you've learned what a lot of people learn. Once you get a van, you don't even need the car anymore. You just put that thing in the corner.
No, I think I figured it out. I think I know. You said you lost motivation, but my question is, early on, you said that your parents split it with you. When did that stop? Was it right at 2015?
No, 20. Hell, I don't know. I mean, probably when I became an adult, I don't know that any of us are adults anymore.
Never.
Right.
Not yet.
But, like 2013, 14, I've always been hustling, man. I'll buy and sell whatever I can do to park cars out. And like I was buying and selling trucks. Like Dodge trucks were my thing. Like if there was a Dodge truck for sale in Central Florida, there was a good chance I was selling it or I was going to buy it. And I was moving trucks a couple a week, and that's how I funded everything.
Oh, I'm just teasing you, man. I didn't mean anything by that.
No.
I just busted your balls.
No. It's no. My parents are still big supporters, man. They fly across the country and watch me compete and stuff. So it's a good time.
No, that's cool, man. When you have your family around and they get to see it and be part of it, it definitely is awesome.
Oh yeah.
I've been pretty fortunate. My dad's pretty cool and he's into it. Like we did a truck a few years back with him, and it's just cool. It's cool to be, I don't know, like to be on the other side of that, to helping them kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite situation.
For sure.
So it's neat. It's neat for sure.
Oh yeah.
And then now I've got 3 kids, and they're starting to kind of get into it, and like they like to pit maneuver each other with the power wheels in the yard and stuff like that. So it's just cool. It's cool to see the different generations and what they get into, and it's neat.
Yeah. Now I've got my twin boys will be they'll be 13 in October. So I guess
we got twins in here. What's up with that?
Yeah, my twins will be 11 in a couple weeks. So. So you took the boys for a ride in the van. How do they like it?
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
It's always about, is it faster than Poppy's car? Because I have, my mom actually daily drives a 2016 Hellcat Charger.
Okay.
So that's what I told him. It's funny. He said that thing has been bone stock since they bought it. They bought it brand new. And I've been trying to get, like, dude, put a pulley on this thing. It's been 1086 at 129, bone stock with a tire on it. So I was like, hey, let's put a pulley on. No, I don't want to mess with your mom's daily driver. So we got the van together. I thought it was going to be lighter than it was. And I was like, I'm going to bust your ass in the Hellcat, right? He's like, it's not going to happen. I was like, no, I said, it's not going to happen on the motor, but when I put the bottle, I'm going to bust your ass. He's like, nope. I'm like, all right, whatever. 2 days later, he's dropping the car off at VMP, which is VMP Performance, big Mustang guys. I've known Justin since like 2005.
Yeah.
And they're like the biggest names in the game for the Ford stuff, and they dabble in some Hellcat stuff. And next thing you know, this thing's making 800 to the tire now. I don't think I have a shot at beating him anyways because the thing's so much heavier than I thought it would be. But
yeah,
Tim's excited about the Hellcat.
Yeah, Tim's our resident Mopar guy. I don't know if you ever hear of Cleveland Power Performance, but they get like every wrecked Hellcat across the country. Yeah, so that's Tim's day job, and
nice.
So he's our resident expert on that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So Induction Solutions, they're in Florida, right? So is that like kind of a local deal for you?
They're on the other side. I'm on the East Coast. They're on the West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah. Oddly enough, they're Steve Johnson, his old Yamaha Zuma scooter. We bought that. My dad has that in the garage.
Okay.
No, I've known Steve for a long time, man. That guy's he's definitely a wizard with nitrous.
Yeah, I did a bunch of research when I was putting the nitrous on the van of which company, and I just had the best feel about them, and it's been great so far. I've been having no problem. So then my dad's truck, so we just put Induction Solutions on that too. So
they make nice.
Yeah. So you put the express van together basically out of spare parts. Wasn't that like a motor in a boat or something? Is that right?
The whole backstory on the van thing was like, I'm trying to remember. I think it was November 2019. We went to a Cletus and Cars event. And my cousin had been watching Cletus. I had seen his stuff, but I wasn't like following him. And my cousin's like, oh, we got to go to this event. So we go there. and JH Diesel had a express van with a 6-liter in it, and he was whipping the thing around, and the crowd loved it. And I was like, dude, we need to build something to do this. And because they were paying like $3,000 to win, it was $3,000 back then. I think it was like $1,500 to win, like $1,000 for second, or however it all worked out. I don't remember it all, but I was like, and basically like the winner was at the time Bruce Wilson had a stock 3rd-gen Camaro that he ran, and he ended up winning. I was like, dude, we could do this. So my original plan, I'm a Dodge guy. That's all I've grew up around Dodges. We've had a family business since 1978. From like 85 until 03 when they quit making the Dodge cargo van, that's all we had.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to find a shorty Dodge van with a 360 in it, and we're going to put nitrous on it, and we're going to go win a burnout contest. And then I just kind of didn't do anything with it. My dad calls me up one day, and he's like, hey, Mike's selling one of their old Ward vans. Do you want to buy it? I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, well, it's an Express, got a 4.8, it's got a bad trans. He's like, I figure you could buy it, put a trans in it, make some money. I was like, all right, that's fine. So we get it home. I think I paid $300 for it. So we get it home, and Dad's like, it's got an LS. And he's like, well, why don't you go ahead and throw a turbo on it, make it your burnout car? I was like, well, why don't we just go out to Mike's and go pick up the 540 and drop it in there? He's like, go ahead. I'm like, done. So the engine was his. That he had bought he's got a 28-foot offshore. It's a Velocity powerboat, but it's a 28-foot offshore powerboat, and it had a 540 in it, but it was a total dud. Like this boat should have run 85 miles an hour, and it would run like 55. And he had a bunch of issues with the engine, and they finally, oddly enough, it had some like eBay camshaft in it, and it broke the cam. So he just pulled it out. He's like, I'm just going to build something new. He built a 598 for it and put big dart heads on it. And that made, at the time, it was making 700 on 87 octane. So that engine just sat. It's sitting disassembled at the engine builder's place. So we're not doing anything. I was like, we're just going to put that in there. He's like, well, you don't have a top end. See if Mike's got a loaner top end we can put together. So the top end is, I still don't own the top end. That's it's off an airboat. So it's got, oddly enough, it has one Edelbach Performer RPM head and one GM Performance Products head. And then it's got a like 600 lift hydraulic roller cam in it and a dual plane GM Performance intake.
Wow.
Like, it's just a total cobbled up deal. So I guess the Performer RPM heads from Edelbrock and GM Performance Products the same cylinder head. I guess it's the same thing and everything. So, but if you look, one is stamped Edelbrock, one's stamped GM. So
that's funny.
So we put it together and stick it in the van, and it's just not running. Like, we can't get it to run right. It's popping. I was like, I think it's got a bad distributor. It was something I had laying around. So we take it out to the engine builder. He grabs a distributor out of an engine sitting there, and we slam it in. Fires right up. It's running good. Going to set the timing, and then it just shuts off. And we're like, that's strange. He's like, why'd you shut it off? I was like, I didn't. I was like, it just locked up. He's like, there's no way. He's like, start it back up. Hit the starter. It's locked up. Oh, we're like, what the hell? So he's like, let me grab my flywheel turner. So he grabs the flywheel tool. Can't move it. Like, it won't move forward. It won't move backwards. And I look, I'm like, dude, there's dents in the oil pan. Like, it was the most, I have the video. It was the most uneventful blow up. Like, it made no sound, just idling, shuts off. I was like, there's dents in the pan. He's like, are you kidding me? It's like, no. Like, we can get the pan off with the engine in the van, though. I said, just drop the crossmember out. So we dropped the oil pan. Can't find nothing wrong. Like, the rods are all intact, but the engine's locked up and the pan's dented. So, you guys are frozen. Oh, they're still good. So the engine's locked up and the pan's empty. There's nothing in it. So I'm like, I don't know. And at this point, we're a month and a half out from the first Cletus and Cars event. So go home, yank the engine out of it, take it out to his place, drop it off. He calls me that day. He's like, you're never going to believe what happened. He's like, the weight in the crank came out. It shot out, hit the oil pan, dented the oil pan, came back around, hit the crank again, shot up, and got wedged between the cam and the block.
Oh, wow.
Big block Chevy, you say?
Trashes the block, trashes the camshaft. And I think we had to put 2 pistons and 2 rods in it. And this wasn't an engine he built. It's still the same short block sitting there. So at this point, well, we're committed now. We're already a bunch of money tied up in this thing. So I guess find a block and let's get it back together. So we end up finding everything, and then COVID hit. So Cletus and Cars is delayed. Nothing's happening. This is 2020. So he ends up finding a block. We get it all back together. July 4th was the first burnout I ever did with it. And it's that engine since then has, with the exception of a pair of lifters, that engine has been rock solid since then.
Yeah.
We put it on methanol because that was the biggest thing. Like burnout stuff, you go to the burnout contest. Yeah, it's gotten a lot better now, but back then it was, you would watch these guys go for about 2 minutes, and then you would hear the engines just start slowly dying, and they'd be wound up hitting the rev limiter. And it's like just big steam blow up, and they're just burning them down from overheating. I was like, we have to keep this thing cool, so we're either going to put 2 radiators in it and a bunch of fans, or we're going to put it on methanol. So I weighed it all out, and it's like, you're going to spend the same amount of money anyways. Let's put it on methanol. So it'll make more power, and it's going to stay ice cold. So I knew nothing about methanol. I still don't really know a whole lot about it. It just works. But that has 100% been the saving grace of that thing, is the methanol. Like, we finish up a run, and it's 170 degrees.
Wow.
That was with the old radiator and fan setup, which didn't work worth a damn. Now, this new setup, I could probably run it on pump gas now with the new setup. Because now we're limited to 2 minutes. Like, it's after 2 minutes, you're basically DQ'd anyways.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they've kind of changed it all up. I would say September, whenever Bristol, the first Bristol event, everything got really serious. They really came, like, cracked down on a scoring system, and we did. It's a 1 minute minimum, 2 minutes maximum. There's a bunch of deductions and stuff that they have along the way. For the wall tap thing has really been a learning curve, because the wall taps, everybody loves them, but it all got to the point where it just became a demo derby.
Right.
As long as you were crashing, you were winning. And everyone's like, listen, we're spending a lot of money. We don't really want to just destroy our stuff to win. It's like, I didn't care. I had a van that I had no money tied up in. But, like, my thing has always been, there's nothing on that thing that's van specific. Like, with the exception of the drive shaft, I can take everything out, put it in the drag car, do whatever I want with it.
Sure.
So for me, I didn't really care. Like, if we try, let's go grab another one and go back to it. And it's gotten a lot more serious now. And had we not gotten in it when we did, I don't know that you would ever be able to get competitive without spending a ton of money.
Right. And that when you had said that, it like, we talk about that a lot with the no prep stuff now, because, when I started doing the no prep stuff, it was the same thing. Like, I wasn't going to be competitive, but I could show up and it was cool. Yeah. Now everything's purpose built and the payouts are huge. So money attracts money, and, it takes the fun out of it for sure.
And that's the thing, in the end, and this is what I always remember, is like, we're entertainers, we're competitors, we're all competitive, we're trying to win, but we're entertainers. When you're doing a sport that's judged, it's really hard to find a clear-cut winner. And it's like, I watch the Australian stuff, and that's what we're all striving to be, is the Australians. But, like, how the hell do you judge that? Like, every one of those guys, it's just completely out of control beyond anything we've ever seen over here. And that's their cars. It's like, how do you choose a clear-cut winner? And it's like, over here, I would say there's 5, maybe 10 that are really good burnout cars in the U.S. And, like, Australia, that's all there is. Like, this is a hardcore thing for them. And now they're a bunch of them over. The guy who Kyle Douglas flew his truck over here, that Hilux, the Luxifer truck. He come over here and just totally dominated us in November. Like, just absolutely obliterated us. He entered 2 classes, won both classes, and it's like, those guys just know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you walk, tip in, and he comes in crazy, and he is nosed up to where he's going to go in the wall, and it's like, he's done. He's screwed up. And he just somehow walks it out of there. RPMs never change. Like, the guy's a wheelman, and that's just what they do. Like, their cars are so well set up.
And that's just straight. There's no, like, assistant, like, water spray jets on the wheels or anything, right? Is it just power, or is it?
It's just power. I mean, some guys, the guys that are really, like, trying to play with that stuff aren't typically competitive anyways. It's everyone. And I had asked him, I talked to him a bunch when we were, after the event in November, I was talking with him. And I said, what do you find, like, the break-off point? Like, at what point is it enough power? And he said, honestly, once you hit 1,000 horsepower, there's not really a benefit to go more than that. 1,000 horsepower is plenty of power to do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
And, like, they just had, I don't think it was Summer Nats, but the big burnout contest over there in Australia, the guy that won it's naturally aspirated. So I think it's a big inch LS, naturally aspirated. He just won the whole thing. So it's like you don't need the blower. The blowers are definitely the wow factor.
Sure.
I mean, the instant power, the noise, and over here, there's a lot of guys that are turbo over here because it's cheap power. But to me, part of it's the sound. The blower cars, or even just a big inch naturally aspirated car, the sound is everything. It's cool watching tires spin, but if it's all you're hearing is turbo whistles, it's just not as fun. Put a turbo on the van. It's like I will never have a turbo on a burnout car.
Yeah.
It's just.
It's funny that when the van first came on my radar, and it was on one of the Vanner pages, and it was when you first got it together, and you were like doing the walk around video.
Yeah.
And I had my engine at that point, and it was funny because I was like, why would you take an LS out to put a big block in where you're going to be, but then I learned it wasn't an LS, but it was funny because it was like, that was my first thought was, and I'm a big block guy, and I'm like you, I'm a Mopar guy. This is the first Chevy engine I've ever had. So it's been a swift learning curve, but I was like, even I know you wouldn't do that,
It was 4.8. So it's an LS, but it's like bottom of the barrel LS at that point.
Sure. Yeah.
We had the big block. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you got a big block, you're going to use the big block, right?
Ultimately, we didn't really have a big block because it blew up immediately. We still spent a bunch of money putting it together, but it sucks because I work with Holly. I've been partners with them. Actually, probably the video you saw, the original walk around video we took, was right after the first Cleetus and cars we did, which would have been November 2020. And we posted that video. Holly reposted. I think they reposted on MSD's page. And it went viral. It had like 1.6 million views or something. And I ended up partnering up with those guys, and I've been with them ever since. But what sucks is they have Holly Mo Party, which is all Mopars, and they got Holly Ford Fest, all Fords, and then they have LS Fest. I can't even go to one of their events.
Right.
And I told them, man, you guys got to really branch it out. And it's like, we can't. LS Fest is already a huge turnout, and it's just LS engines.
Right.
He's like, you would have to have your own show just for everything else. So, I would love to have something LS powered, but for me, it's been so hard for me to change anything because it's been such a proven combo. That engine has been rock solid. And it's like, everyone would ask me through 2021, 2022, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? It's like, when we stop winning. Why are we going to change? It's been so reliable. And so we turn that engine 6,000 RPM. It's like, why don't you turn it 7? Because it lives. The guys that are turning 7 are replacing engines every month. I can't afford to do that.
Right.
So when we start losing, then we'll start upgrading, and we're there. We still did well in November, but the competition's just gotten so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Kelly is the Kelly brothers up there. It's Boosted Ride YouTube channel. Those guys have 3 blower cars. They show up with a wedge trailer and a toter home, and they got 3 blower cars. And nice. Any one of them has a chance at winning. The guy, Adam drives the hell out of everything. Jason's getting there. He just doesn't have the seat time. Those guys, they don't really have practice up there because they're in Iowa. So just like you guys, half the season they're snowed in. So
right.
Down here we get to play all the time.
Mm-hmm. So when you made the switch or the decision to put it in the short wheelbase and do Sick Week, what's the I want to hear about Sick Week and the whole thing because we had a lot of conversations about it as it was happening. But what's the vibe as far as the difference between the Burnout guys, which obviously you're pretty solid in that camp. Everyone knows who you are. You're a new face on Sick Week. What was the difference there?
For us, because we're local. Sick Week is Orlando. We never even put since this thing has been running, it hasn't been on a trailer. I've driven it everywhere. Mm-hmm. Sick Week started in Orlando this year. That's our home track. Was only 40 minutes away. So I knew a bunch of the guys. I know Tom Bailey now through doing the Burnout stuff. Tom Bailey hangs with Garrett and which is Cleetus. He goes to the Burnout contest. So I had actually talked to him in Indy last year. I said, man, I want to do Sick Week next year. And I was like, we're going to put something together. I don't know what we're going to take yet, but I'm going to do Sick Week next year. He's like, all right, cool, man. So we were originally going to take, my cousin's got a G8 that he daily drives. We're just going to take that. So I got a spot, and then I was like, you know what? We could take the new van on Sick Week. And the new van wasn't even really a thought. I have always wanted a Dodge Shorty van, but it's hard to find them clean.
Yeah.
And mine's not that clean. The roof is in bad shape on this thing, which is why it's not wrapped on the roof. It's got a bunch of rust on it. But
your dad put a lot of roller time in that roof.
He did, and that's we want to wrap the roof. It's you can't, man. Like if you see it, it's bad. Like it's got a bunch of rust in the front, it's got a bunch of rust in the rear, and it's like, but it was hard to find something decent. So when we got this, I had originally bought, and you would have seen it, I'm sure, from following it from then, but I had originally bought that 78 G10 shorty.
Yep.
So again, very little research with a lot of the decisions I make. I just kind of jump into on it. I was like, shorty G10 van, that'll be great. I went to the junkyard and I measured the dog houses because like the express van's only 25-inch dog house. It was not very wide. The big block really didn't fit in there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nightmare to work on. So I went to the junkyard and there was a G10 sitting there, or G20, and a couple old school Dodge vans. And I knew I needed a pre-97 Dodge because that's when they moved the engines forward in 98. So I knew I needed a pre-97, and then I figured the Chevys are all the same. So we found that that 78 G10. I was like, this thing's super clean. I picked it up for, I think I paid like $1,500 for it. It ran and drove.
Wow.
So I sold, it was a steal. And I sold the engine and trans out of it. It actually had a 350 crate motor in it. So I think the engine and trans out of it for $1,000. I wasn't into it bad. Went to put the big block in, and it just doesn't fit because you need a Chevy van from after 84. Because 84, they widened the doghouses. I get this van, it's only a 24-inch wide doghouse. So it's narrower than what I had before. It's like you physically just can't, you wouldn't be able to get headers in it. So then I was like, well, I'll just keep it. I'll put the LS in it. And I was like, there's just not, I don't need a race van and a burnout van while my Camaro's just sitting in the garage. So we ended up
I would disagree, but yeah.
We ended up cutting that loose, and I wasn't even really looking. I just jumped on Marketplace one day and I found that Dodge that I ultimately have now. And I paid $1,500 or $1,800 for that. It was a run and drive and truck with a 3.9 in it. And we built that thing in, I'd have to really sit down and do the math on it, but like the other van was running December 15th. So from December 15th, like I had made motor mounts and stuff prior, but from December 15th to what was it, January 28th is how long it took me to build that. Like we slammed it together. I knew it had the factory, 8 3/4 rear. And I was like, that's not going to live. So we found the 9 1/4 and we started going through that. And we're walking through the junkyard one day looking for spindles because it was 5 lug and all my stuff. I work with Archon Off-Road and custom offsets, and all my stuff's 8 lug. It's like they don't have anything in 5 lug. We'll just convert it to 8 lug. So on those, all you have to do is change the spindles. The spindle and the rotor is the only difference. The calipers are the same. The hoses are the same. It's just spindles and rotors.
Yeah, Dodge is pretty good for not wanting to change parts. They are like, we've had this in 65 and it's still good. Yeah.
So we ended up finding that, and we're walking through. My cousin goes, hey, did you see the rear end in that? It was a Dodge Explorer motorhome. The big B350. Yeah. It was sitting there. He goes, that's got a full floater in it. I was like, are you serious? He goes, yeah. So we walk over there, and it's a Dana 60 full floater. So I was like, we may grab that. So we went back home, and I started looking that night, and I'm like, man, they actually, it's all the same. All those vans are the same from the 70s all the way up to the late 2000s, early 2000s. So I ended up going back there, and I bought this thing. It's a Dana 60 full floater with a 355 rear out of a motorhome. So it's only got 30,000 miles on it. I paid $100 for it. So we bring it home, weld it up. It's got 355 gears in it. I was like, that's really what we wanted anyways. So welded it up. I put a B&M cover on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's got the factory 30 spline full floater axles. I didn't know how well they were going to hold up, but so far they're fine. I don't know how it's going to be when we start launching on trans brake with it, but
yeah, mine didn't like that, but it was good up until then. That's funny. I never thought about the fact that yours was 8 lug before, because when you got that full floater, I was like, you could swap out the axles and the lug, but it actually worked for you being an 8 lug. So that's funny.
I actually needed an 8 lug one.
Yeah.
When we saw it, it was like the beam of light shining down on. I was like, this is exactly what we need.
Yeah. So sick week. It seemed like we were watching, a lot of people that were revving up to it. And it was like the day before, I'm like, man, this week is cursed. Like everyone was breaking everything. I mean, you had oil pickups falling off and, all kinds of stuff, which obviously you overcame. But so tell me about like how that was. What was the whole ordeal? Give me a rundown.
So I did a video of it, but basically on those vans, as you know, it's just not easy to get an engine in and out of one of them. So how do you pull your engine out of yours?
So I go through the front, but mine, I know yours isn't. Mine is cut a little bit above where the engine sits, so it clearances. But on those Dodge, I mean, I put so many big blocks in Dodge vans. I've always learned as long as you get the van high enough that the boom of the cherry picker is completely horizontal, it'll go in. You might have to pull a valve cover, but it'll go in. That's the trick. Is most people don't get them high enough.
Yeah, I think if I pulled the valve cover, we may be able to do it. But yours is motor plated too.
Yes.
You see, my problem is I got to lift the engine up high enough to get it over the mounts to set it in the mounts.
Yes.
And where my issue has been most of the time. Like to get it in place is no problem, but to get it that last 2 inches to get it up over the mounts is where my problem comes in.
Yeah. Now my buddy just put a 493 in his van, and his is a mid Dodge like mine, and he put it on the K member and then bolted the K member up.
And that's what we tried doing. And the problem is, like, I know you've got a rear sump oil pan on yours, and we're running like it's a factory Mercruiser oil pan off a boat, and it works so well that I don't want to change it. So we had to cut a ton of that cross member out to make it work.
Gotcha.
But we're gonna I'm gonna change some stuff up on it. I don't know. I don't love how much I had to butcher that cross member, but it works. But I mean so basically the only way that we were able to do it is we stick a big block of wood under the oil pan. And I've done it like that 3 times now, and it's never been an issue. Well, it became an issue. I guess it pushed up hard enough that it broke the pickup off, and we didn't know it. And this new van has got new dash in it. It's got all new wiring in it, and a bunch of sensors are different. So we fired it up, and like it sounded fine. I've never really gotten to hear the engine because it's always been open headers or loud exhaust, and now it's got quiet exhaust on it. So we fire it up, and my dad's like, hey, you got no oil pressure. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's got like 17 pounds. He's like, are you sure the sensors are scaled right? I was like, no. They're probably not scaled right. And he's like, well, he goes, it's kind of concerning, so let's put a mechanical gauge on it. I was like, all right, fine. So we throw a mechanical gauge on it, and it don't have oil pressure. I was like, well, I know it's long overdue for an oil change because we change oil on it like every 2 events, and we had like 4 on it. I was like, let me get some fresh oil in it, fresh filter in it. So throw fresh oil and filter in it and fire it up, and it's got 60 pounds of pressure. We're like, all right, we're good. As soon as you touch the throttle, it drops down to 12. I was like, yeah. I said, it's got a broken pickup. And my dad's like, because that's really the only thing it would be. He's like, it's got to be a broken oil pump pickup. And he's like, we'll drop the pan. I was like, yeah, it's not the express fan. It ain't that easy anymore. It's like, so basically we had to cut the whole cross member out. I said, or we got to drop the entire suspension out of it. And he's like, well, why don't you cut the cross member out? I was like, well, because if I cut the cross member out and the engine's hurt, we still got to take all the suspension out to get the motor out. And he's like, he goes, man, I don't think it's going to be hurt. He's like, we cut the filter open. There's nothing in the filter. He's like, let's cut the cross member. I was like, all right. So we cut the cross member out, and sure enough, pickup's broken. So he goes online and he finds it, and he goes, hey, AutoZone's got it in Orlando, and they're open till midnight. I'm like, all right.
You did all that. You did all that there at Sick Week?
No, this was Thursday leading up to Sick Week.
Oh my goodness!
Like that was the first time we started it was it may have been Monday before Sick Week, so about a week before, and we realized it's got no oil pressure, so we dropped the pan, put a new pump and pickup on it, and stick it all back together. Fires up, and it's good. We got good oil pressure, everything's good. We're like, all right, cool. So I drove it that night. It was like 1 a.m. Drove it around. And I was like, everything's good. For a first drive, everything, we're good. So I take it, go back, keep wrenching on it. And I take it, drive it, get alignment done, drive it around town a little bit. Everything's good. And my dad's like, hey, do a burnout with it. I'm like, all right. So I do a burnout, look down, no oil pressure. What the hell? And so we start, I didn't even pay attention. Like I do the burnout, I look down, and I hadn't calibrated the dash yet because it's got a big 12-inch Holley Pro dash. I didn't calibrate it for all the safety stuff to where it'll start flashing and telling you. So I just look down, and it's down at 2 PSI. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And it still sounds quiet. So I shut it off, and I'm sitting there for a couple seconds, and I fire it back up, and it's got 40 pounds. As soon as you start driving, it drops back down to 2. And I was like, damn. So I was like in the same neighborhood. I just drove back So the thing, my dad's like, it's rattling now. He's like, what happens? Like, it broke the pickup again. He's like, there's no way. I'm like, I'm telling you, there's no oil pressure. So we stuck a mechanical gauge on it, rolled it over on the starter, and it's got no oil pressure. He's like, all right. So now this is Thursday before sick week. So we got 4 days. Push
This is the point where I would be like, well, we gave it our best shot. There's always next year. Like,
And I'm out.
He's with, and it's like I just can't let these guys down, man. So it's like at this point, I'm like, all right, let's push it back on the lift. I know what I got to do. Cut the cross member back out and drop the pan, and the pickup just fell off. And it was one of the, and I knew better. It was a pressed on pickup that everyone always welds, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not comfortable welding it. So it didn't last but 2 days. So I called my engine builder. I was like, hey, what can I do with this thing? I said, I don't know of anybody around that can weld it. I said, I just don't trust myself to try and weld it because it's cast iron and steel. He's like, well, what we used to do on them is drill it and tap it with a 1/4-20. He goes and just run a bolt in to where it's like one thread into the pickup. He goes, put Loctite on it, put a jam nut on it. He was like, it ain't coming off. I'm like, all right. So I did that and stuck it all back together, and it was good. It was dead quiet. Everything was fine. I drove it that night. So now it's Friday night. It's now Saturday, 2:00 in the morning. I'm going to drive it home at this point because I've been doing all this. What are you doing, man? I'm doing all this at my parents' house, which is 2 miles from my house because they got a lift and everything. So I drive it home. I was like, I haven't even floored this thing yet. I'm going to run it through the gear. So I wind it up through second, clicking in the third, let off, and it's rattling. I looked down. It's got 60 pounds of oil pressure. I said, it dropped the lifter. I said, it had to have collapsed the lifter. So drive it back home. It's still making noise, but it's got oil pressure. I know it ain't hurt. So get home. I think are you guys muted? Yeah, I don't know what you did. Hang on, buddy. No, there you are. Yeah, it says you were muted.
Yes, I can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
Hang on.
Oh.
Is it the Holly crank sensor?
Yeah.
That's
what it was. Let me do this here. If I unplug this.
Get him inside. Go on.
All right. I think that's good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
Yeah. Now I can. I don't know what happened.
So, it's 2:00 in the morning. I drive this thing home, run it through the gears, and it starts rattling. But it's got 62 pounds of oil pressure. I'm like, it collapsed the lifter. I was like, you can only run these things so long without oil on.
Right.
So I go home. Now it's Saturday morning, 2:00 in the morning. I was like, I'm going to bed. So I go home, shower, lay down in bed. I'm like, I can't go to sleep. So I go back outside, pull the valve cover off this thing at 3:00 in the morning. See, it's got a bad lifter. It's like, where am I going to even get a pair of lifters a day before sick week on a weekend? So I called my engine builder. I said, hey, do you have anything? I called him next morning. I said, hey, do you have any lifters? He goes, I don't have any new ones. He goes, I got a set of used ones. I was like, are they good? He goes, they were when we took them out. I'm like, all right, well, I'll see you tonight. So he came by that night. We had already planned to go on the boat with the family and everything. I was like, well, I'm going on the boat. So I went out for the day and we got home and he met us at the house at 4 and we plucked. And now with the engine so far back, everything's easy to work on. You can get the lifter out in like a half hour. So pull the lifters out, throw a pair of them in, fire it up. It's dead quiet. I'm like, we're going to go take this thing out and just go beat the hell out of it. So we sitting 3 deep in this thing, just ripping it through the town. And I beat on it for like an hour and a half. And I was like, I guess it's good. So put it back on the lift and continued work. And we still had a ton of stuff to do. I had all kinds of issues with getting fuel pressure to stay consistent. Cause I've got it's got the factory 36-gallon gas tank in it. And then Holly actually makes a drop-in fuel pump module. So goes right in the factory tank. It's got a pump that's good for 1,100 horse. I think it's like a 450. But it's a fuel injected pump. So I was like, I'll just put a regulator on it and regulate it down. Well, it's all -8 and I got a -6 regulator. And it just you can't get it to go down low enough pressure wise. It would run at 15 PSI. So we took it all apart and figured, well, if we drill this orifice out, we can get it to work. And that's what we ultimately did at 2:00 in the morning on Sunday. And we got the fuel pressure to stay good. And at this point, I really haven't driven. I've only got 15 miles. I haven't driven it at all. So my buddy rolls in from Alabama, and he works on it with us for a little bit. We go home. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, go to sleep, get up at 6, hook the trailer up to the back. Cause at this point we still haven't loaded the trailer. Hooked the trailer up the next morning. We drove it to Orlando and it was trouble free. We drove it all the way out there. I was like, we'll make one shakedown pass with it. And we'll drive it back home. And we'll fix whatever we tear up today. So we drive it down the track. I leave somewhat soft with it, like half throttle, and then just rolled into it. And it run, I think it went 1186 at like 112 on the first pass that we had ever made with it. So bring it home, start checking things. It's only got like 60% throttle. So fix the throttle pedal and everything, get all that to work. Wake up the next morning, drive it to the track. I was like, I'm just going to leave the exact same way. Well, now instead of half throttle being 30%, now half throttle is actually half throttle. So I leave the same way. I was like, man, this thing feels good. I look up, it's gone a 167, 60 foot. Click it into second gear, and it just launches the drive shaft out.
Oh.
And I was like, damn. And I felt it happen. And like it was shaking. And I was like, I'll just power through it. And you can't power through it. Click it into second, it just lets go. And I'm like, damn. So I pull over. I'm sitting there, and I'm come to a stop, and it's still shaking. I'm like, all right. So it broke off at the rear end. So it's like before I jump out, I look underneath. It's got a big aluminum drive shaft. It's in the loop. It's all dented up. I need a drive shaft and I need a yoke. So like if you watch the live stream, they're pushing me off the track and I'm on my phone because I'm already calling our local drive shaft shop, which is the other side of Orlando. It's Advanced Driveline. I call those guys like, dude, I need a drive shaft like right now. And they're usually a couple days out. It's like, I need you to make me a drive shaft today. He's like, all right, we'll stay after hours. So I got
that's
back.
pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to those guys, man. They're the whole reason we even made it. So we get back to the track, and my dad's hanging out there at the pits, and I was like, hey, take this drive shaft and go to Donnie. They're gonna build us a drive shaft. He's like, all right. So he jumps in the car, drives over there. They build us a drive shaft. We pull the yoke off. They had another yoke, another drive shaft. They built it for us in like an hour. Came back, slammed it all back in. They're shutting the lights off at the track in Orlando. So we're in the pitch black now. We put a drive shaft in it, put the yoke in it. I had already called FTI because they're local to me as well. I said, hey, what are the odds that this trans isn't hurt? He's like, well, where did it break? I said, it broke on the 1-2 shift. He's like, he goes, it's probably fine. I was like, well, do you have another 400 sitting there on the shelf? He goes, no. I'm like, well, we're going to hope it's not broke then. So put it back together. I was like, it's going to suck if we do all this work and it's dead. So put it all back together. I drove it through the pits. It was good. I was like, all right, let's go. So it's 7 o'clock at night. Sick week, you have to follow their route. They give you a route to take.
Yeah.
So from Orlando to Bradenton generally isn't that bad at night, except we have to go out to Cape Canaveral and then take A1A all the way down. And it's all 35 miles an hour. 228 miles. And my buddy's like, you know how far this is? I was like, yeah, it's like a little over 200 miles. He goes, it's 7 hours. I was like, all right.
Again, I'm out.
It doesn't even sound enjoyable. Like,
No.
I mean, I get it. Everybody, it's like when it's over, it's like I accomplished something, and that's amazing and it's impressive. Yeah. But it's like it doesn't even sound fun
to people who aren't car people. It's really difficult to explain. It's like, what do you win? Well, you don't win anything.
Nothing.
It's like, well, why are you doing it? It's like
torture.
Yeah, torture. What it is, and we're paying good money to do this.
Yeah, right.
So we drove honestly, everything was pretty smooth. We drove all the way down to 64 and we start cutting across, and now like it's cold. Like it's 45 degrees in Florida. That's cold. So
yeah, we feel really bad for you about that.
Yeah, right. We'd have t-shirts on.
Like 45 degrees in Florida is cold. So we start cutting across the state. Now it's midnight. And we pull away from a stoplight and the belt starts squealing. I was like, that's weird. So I'm like, it's cold, it's wet. I said, maybe it's just squealing. So next stoplight does the same thing. So I was like, all right, we got to check it. So we pull in, we check the bolt broke off in the cylinder head for the alternator mount. I was like, well, so of course the spacer's gone, the bolt's gone, everything. I'm like, well, I mean, I can fix it tomorrow. Like when we get to the track, I can get a welder and we can weld the nut on it. We'll back it out. We'll be good. So we just got to limp it through. We still had another 100 miles to go. So my buddy is like MacGyver, man. He's like, he opens up the toolkit and he goes, so we take this 1/4-inch drive extension and drive it through the front of the bracket through the alternator and just sort of zip tie through it. I'm like, do it. So we did it. We drove it 100 miles like that.
That's cool.
And
Yeah. Squealing.
so we made it like another half hour, and then a boar runs out in front of us at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I have to swerve off the road. My parents are behind us. They call me like, what was that? I'm like, dude, it was a boar. She goes, your trailer was one wheel when you come around when you did that. I was like, that'll suck for us to work this hard and then get taken out by a pig.
Yeah, right.
But we made it. We got to Bradenton at like 2 a.m. We get up. I tell my buddy, he's not a morning person, so I wake him up at like 6. I'm like, hey, let's get going. We'll go. They got a huge Ace Hardware down there. So I said, we'll go to Ace and we'll get the stuff we need to fix the alternator and everything. He's like, well, he goes, we get there, you get the stuff to do that. And he goes like, I'm going to get some stuff to make traction bars. I'm like, all right. So he meets me at the register and he's got a 6-foot piece of inch and a half square tubing and 6 U-bolts. I'm like, all right, I know I got what you're doing. So we had a sawzall, we had a drill, we had a bunch of stuff. So we take these things, we cut them into 17-inch pieces, and then U-bolt them to the top of the front of the leaf spring to basically just flatten it out to get it to not axle wrap. So we stuck all that on there. So I'm just going to leave really easy with it, just so we can go A to B and get back on the road, because we got to go now from Bradenton to South Gainesville. So it's another long ride. So we did that. I left pretty soft with it. I think it went like another 1180 pass. And I was like, hey, it didn't shake anywhere near as bad. So I was like, we're good. Let's load up. We'll get on the road. So we jump on the road. We drove it pretty much trouble-free to Gainesville. And we get there at one of the checkpoints, and they're like, they're standing there with a live stream. Hey, do a burnout. I was like, yeah, we'll do a burnout. So I started doing the burnout, and it's like pushing through the brakes. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this thing? So they're like, what was that? I'm like, dude, we have no brake pedal. Like, I'm pushing the brake pedal, and we have nothing. It's spongy as hell. So we go inside. We have dinner. We come back out, pull the hood. I tell my cousin, hey, push the brake pedal. He pushes the brake pedal. Brake fluid shoots across the engine bay. I was like, damn. He's got a hole in a brake line in the steel portion. I was like, cool. So now we get to flare a brake line in a parking lot. So Advance Auto is like walking distance. So they go over there, they grab a flaring kit, make this thing back up, stuck it back together, bled the brakes. They worked perfect. And that was it. Like, we didn't break anything else the rest of the trip. We get to what was it? Gainesville. So Gainesville, they ran C group first, which is what we were in. So we got to make our first pass early on in the day. The air was really good. I think we were like negative 200 feet. So I leave a little bit harder with it. It goes 1160 to 115. I was like, damn, so that's actually running pretty strong. It's like, we're done. We can just jump on the road and go. And it was, of course, the shortest drive day. It's like 120 miles. So we get to our hotel at like 4 o'clock in South Georgia. My buddy's like, what are we going to do with ourselves? He's like, we're actually going to get sleep tonight. So we ended up, I'm laying we're checking everything out in the parking lot at the hotel. And I was like, both shocks go forward on this. I was like, I bet you if we put a really stiff shock on this, we could get it to really limit the axle wrap. So I said, take one of those shocks off. Let's measure everything, and we'll see what we can get. In South Georgia, we're only like 3 hours from Summit. I was like, see if we can find a shock. So we measured it all up, and I jumped on Calvert's website, and they had a shock that would work. So we get to South Georgia the next morning. I go over there. Summit was actually there with one of their trucks. So I asked them, I said, hey, you guys, I'm sure you don't have the shock. And they go, no. I said, can you get one of those? Can you get them brought over? He's like, I can get them overnighted to Orlando for you. I was like, that's fine. I said, what's it cost to do that? Like $30. I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, we'll give you 10% off if you buy them right now. I was like, all right, well, then it's going to cost me $5 to ship them. I was like, done deal. So we buy them. They overnight them to the track. We get to the track. We drove. That was the longest drive day. And, of course, we run last that day. So we roll out of South Georgia, and it's 280 miles back. And, of course, you have to take their route. So you're going across the state. We're not really running on the interstate at all. Once we get to Ormond Beach is our last checkpoint. And I live basically between Ormond and Orlando. I was like, so once we hit that checkpoint, we'll just jump on the interstate and run home. So we jumped on the interstate. I ran, I think, 3,500 RPM the whole way home. We were doing like 75. And it burned a lot of oil, but It was good. We got back to the
Yeah.
house, sleep. The shocks were waiting on us at the track, threw the shocks on it, and then I did the same thing. I said, we're going to leave easy with it just to go A to B so we complete sick week. And then the last pass, I'm just going to lay into it and see what it does. And the last pass, I left pretty hard with it, but the air was crappy. But it went a 163, 60 foot, and it pulls the front tire. I mean, it's on 20 by 10 cast aluminum wheels all the way around. So, like, for it to pull a tire is pretty impressive already.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and it's like there's nothing done to it, actually. So we put, oh, yeah, so you got the video. So
I don't know how to make it play, but I got it up there. So that's impressive.
Yeah. We put a set of 9010 Lakewood shocks for an S10 on it. So you take the bottom mounting post, drive that out, and then drive the factory one in. And it works perfect. It's like the dimensions are all perfect and everything, and that front end comes up fast. So like it dead hooks on a 20-inch drag radial. We just got to get it to not axle wrap.
Right.
So
when you're on all these routes and all these other people and everyone's breaking down and stuff, like, is there like how many? Does anybody other than people that are like with a shop together, like, do people kind of hook up in convoy? Like when someone's on the side of the road, are you like, we should check on them, or like that's the fourth car we've seen, we can't check on everybody? Like, what's the vibe there?
You didn't see a lot of guys broken down on the road. Like most of the guys were breaking stuff at the track. You know, when we're cruising through, and a lot of this stuff, it's in Florida, you're driving through the woods late at night. And if we saw somebody, I would tell my buddy, hey, we're going to stop. And the thing that I had seen on the videos is like, if you see somebody, you hold your thumb out the window. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs up, we're good. Keep on cruising. Thumbs down, hey, we need help. So everybody that we passed was thumbs up, we're good, and we just kept on cruising.
Okay.
I mean, if you were in a situation where you needed help, everybody is always willing to lend out anything they have. So, I mean, it's just any form of drag racing, any form of really anything automotive. All the competitors are always willing to loan whatever they need to their competitor to try and beat them.
No, that's cool.
But,
and I do see that. Like every time you see video of any of it, or anybody has any coverage, that's exactly what it seems like. It just seems pretty cool. I mean, it does seem neat. I don't think it's for everybody. You know, you definitely got to be that guy. You got to be willing to like put the work in, and that's not an easy ordeal. And if you show up to that thinking it's going to be easy, I think you're going to have a bad time.
You know, the whole thing is like the draggers, oh, we got to make this thing go down the track. It's like when I built the van originally, is all we have to do is make it do a 2-minute burnout. Now, this is something make it street legal-ish, and then you got to drive it 1,000 miles. And drive
I think that's got to be the bigger challenge. You know, like you watch these guys are like, oh, I can go down the track, but yeah, making the trip has got to be the hard part. And you know, obviously, I think as you go faster and faster, that's got to be just, you know, like you got these guys, you know, like the Tom Baileys and, you know, there's unlimited classes. Like, I don't even know how they do. That's insanity. I mean, just crazy, but it's cool.
Like Brett LaSala's car. That is a Mustang with a Coyote engine, and the thing was running like 630s, and he did the same drive we did.
Yep.
Like,
that car was very impressive.
That car is insane. But again, like, so people helping people. He's a direct competitor to Cletus, and they're working on the car in Cletus's shop.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's willing to lend a hand to everybody. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's just how that is. I think that's good. That's not weird though. I think that's just how that whole you know, every event is like that, you know.
Yeah.
So what would you change doing it again?
I'll probably not do it again. No. We're definitely, you know, it's got to plan ahead. Like there was no planning for this. Like we're going to take the van on sick week. We have no idea how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. Like planning ahead would probably be a good benefit to us.
Right.
Considering how quick it was thrown together, and everyone looks at it as like, oh, you built it in this long, in 20 days or 30 days or whatever it was. Like people don't realize. I get up at 6, I go to work, I come home at like 4:30, 4 o'clock, and I have 4 kids and a fiance. So I'm with them until 8 o'clock, 8:30 when they go to bed. And then when everyone crashes out, I jump in the truck, go over to my parents' house, and I work till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And like that was my life for a month and a half. Like I ran on 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day, and that's all I did. And on the weekends, I worked on it a bunch.
You've got more burnout events coming up then? What's the next event you're doing?
Yeah, so basically the burnout season will start up the first weekend of April. So they changed it. It used to be called Cletus and Cars. Now it's Burnout Rivals. So Burnout Rivals starts, I think it's April 6th or April 7th. It's the first weekend in April. And we start in Bradenton. That's our first event. So we compete in Bradenton. The first weekend in May is in Indy. And then from Indy, excuse me, we wanted to do Six Summer, which is up in actually a plumber. It's hence the plumber's crack. We actually run a plumbing company since 1970. It's a family company.
Chris Perry's going to be pumped up.
Yeah, our buddy Perry's that's how you got on his radar, because he's a plumber and he's like, oh, this plumber truck. So yeah, that's cool.
No, it's funny. It's like we show up at these events and people are going, "Are you really a plumber?" It's like, "Yeah, man. Oh, I'm a plumber too." Thank you for your service. But so we do Indy, and then I want to do Six Summer, and the whole thing would have been like, I've got 4 race equipped seats in this thing. I was like, I want to be able to take my kids on Six Summer, but I don't want to pull them out of school during the school year. But Six Summer, they got time. Mm-hmm. But like scheduling this year is really tough because like Indy's 1,000 miles each way for us. So we make that trip in a day, but it's 18, 20-hour day driving. And then you have, you compete on Saturday. Sunday is the race for the circle track stuff. I mean, typically we jump on the road and drive back home because I got to go to work on Monday. Mm-hmm. But, so if we go to Indy, if I could find somewhere to leave that stuff up there and we could fly back, I could probably do Six Summer. But the other thing is now the Australians are coming over and they're doing, what is that called? Power Cruise. And that's a burnout contest in May I think it's in like Missouri or something. Or maybe it's up that way somewhere. And it's like, I'd love to go to one of those events, but like there's a ton of stuff happening up north in the summertime. Oh, I lost you again. Thank you. You got no volume on you guys. Can't hear you. Let's see what's going on here. There's comments in here I haven't even looked at. Was a Chevy van LS powered. The Chevy van, original Express van, was LS powered. Yeah, welding the spider gears is definitely roughing it. Power Tour, man. I'd love to do Power Tour. I've always followed that stuff, but I'm a drag racer. It's like the amount of work doing Power Tour, you're doing the same amount of work as you would be doing on Sick Week. You don't get to race. So I would love to do like Hot Rod Drag Week or something like that. I'll answer questions while they're getting their mics all fired back up. Just water, man. My fiance just brought it out. She hears me coughing, I guess. I guess they're struggling on that microphone. It just shows muted on my end for you guys. I can see you, but I still can't hear you. Carbon drive shaft. No, the original drive shaft. So the second Express van had a one-piece shaft, and it was aluminum. It was 5-inch. Basically, it was a diesel truck drive shaft. It was like 74 inches long. So it was cheaper for us to shorten the aluminum drive shaft than to get anything else built. It was an aluminum drive shaft, but when it fell into the loop, it got dented up. So we basically had to, get rid of it. And I told them, I said, I just need a drive shaft. I don't care if it's steel, aluminum, whatever you can do to get me a drive shaft right now. So the one in it now is like a 3-inch steel shaft. Any plans to build another LS van? I don't think I always say this is my last van, and I try to mean it. If you're just tuning in, I've got a 3rd-gen Camaro that is 25.3, so it's legal for $650 in the quarter at 3,200 pounds. So I'd like to put that back together, and it just doesn't make sense for me to build another van to have for racing when I got a dedicated drag car. 49 swapping a G30, hell yeah. Yeah, that's what I was telling him. I said, nope, I can hear you again.
I think I got nothing.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you. I'm good.
I can't hear you. Okay, I got nothing, but I'm glad you can hear at least.
Yeah.
What about now?
Well,
I
this
can
is
still hear
unplugged.
you.
Let me replug this back in.
See what you got.
I heard a click.
Can you
Anything?
hear me? I'm good still.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan can hear. Okay, so we're just flying blind. I can't hear anything, but apparently people can hear us. So this is what happens when we don't invite Tim on.
I blame Tim entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Technical difficulties guy.
Maybe I can try to get volume there.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's a good idea.
Yeah, pull up another stream.
Good.
Let me jump back on the chat here.
Oh, we're back. I can hear.
They just didn't like me. Obvious.
Do you ever get with Andrew from Skids? Yeah, I know Andrew, and we got Andrew and Seth and Carl and everybody else over there at Skids for Kids. I know those guys real well, man. Good people, good organization.
Thank you to all you guys for sticking around. That was Wayne was having like a mini seizure over here almost with the technology.
Dude, I'd pull up the stream or pull up the chat and answer questions while you guys were figuring all that out.
Yeah, that's perfect. I don't know why it just cuts itself out with no warning. So I thought I was going to lose the whole stream. So I'm glad that was just what happened.
And like I had the comments were popping up periodically, and then I didn't get any, so I was like, let me open the thing up. I opened it up, and there's a ton of them in here. I'm like, oh man, I missed all.
Yeah, the ones that pop up on the screen, I do that. So like I can just put something up there and then hide it again. So
yeah, if I leave it, I can't see you guys, but
yeah, right.
All right, so I have a question for you though. So because you kind of have done both, I guess you've done all three, I guess. What's your favorite and why? Whether it be like the radial racing, the burnouts, or now the new thing, the drag and drive stuff.
You know, I've been following the drag and drive stuff. I did some radial tire racing, but I was broke, man. We had a stock bottom end small block Chevy not stock bottom end, stock block small block Chevy. It had Cali's rotating assembly and stuff, but single bar plate nitrous kit, like. It would have been an ultra street legal car, but it was only running 540s back then. But at the time, ultra street was only going 490s.
Yeah.
Like when we built it to run with the 25.3, we were gonna try and do some ultra street stuff with it. By the time we got the car close, they were running 460s. It's like all that stuff just evolves so fast, man. And and even ultra street, it's a money sport.
Oh yeah.
The burnout stuff has been a blast because you don't have to spend a bunch of money to be competitive. Now it's getting to the point because they've got the higher payouts now. Like Garrett's paying out, it's like $15,000. It's over $15,000 in these burnout contests now. It's like the open comp is $3,000 to win, $1,500 for second, $1,000 for third, and then they do $500 and then $250. Pro comp is $6,000 to win. 2,500 second, 1,500 third, and then fourth and fifth is still five and 250. I've got ET Street SSs. It's actually a 305, 35, 20. So we're on 20-inch drag radials on that.
Nice. So you didn't really answer the question though. You're like a politician. So what's your favorite?
The drag and drive stuff's a blast, man. I had a really good time doing that, and I told my buddy, would I have had as much fun with the Camaro? I don't know. You know, the drag and drive stuff was fun because we weren't trying to be competitive. We were just trying to complete it. So I don't know if I would have as much fun trying to stick around and run the number I need to run to win. It was fun to make a pass and get on the road. The burnout stuff's a blast too. You know, the environment, because again, if the burnout stuff, you're a competitor, but you're an entertainer. You know, you get fans. It's so weird to have fans. If people are actually like the weirdest thing was when you're sitting there hanging out with people at the pre-party, like, can I get your autograph? It's like, dude, I'm just a regular guy, man.
That's cool though.
That is cool. It's nice to have it pay off like that, you know.
No, it's
Sure.
definitely. As far as like which one's my favorite, I've always loved drag racing. You know, I wouldn't say radial tire racing. If my car goes back together, it's going to be a drag and drive car.
It's gonna be, what is it?
I'm going to do drag and drive stuff with it.
Drag and drive, got you.
I mean,
Yeah, it seems like that's like the popular move right now. It seems like everybody's jumping on board with that.
it's either drag and drive or no prep, and I'm just not looking to replace my stuff every 6 months from crashing it. Yeah.
Yep.
The no prep stuff, that's a, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, the no prep stuff, like I like it, but it's the same thing. Like I'm not competitive, but the van is an attention getter. People like it, and it's quick enough to be respectable.
For
You know,
sure.
I'm not like just taking up space out there, but I like that crowd. You know, I
Yeah.
like pulling up to the line in between hundreds of people that have to get out of your way so you can do your burnout. Like I like that. You know, that's the energy that I enjoy. You know, I can spend an afternoon at the drag strip and be like, I'm good with this for the rest of the year, you know. So
Because your car, what's your van been? You've been 1040s with that?
1080.
1080. Okay.
Yeah.
And how much?
And that's on a 250 shot.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is I only can use the nitrous for about 900 feet of the track because I'm out of RPM.
Yeah.
So, you know, my engine really shouldn't go over 62. And when I'm on the bottle on a sticky track, I'm at 65. It just flashes the converter. Now on the street and on a no prep, it doesn't do that. So I've kind of had to make that trade-off of I don't do a lot of prep track racing. I could tighten the converter and make it go faster, but it's not what I do. But on the street, it loves the nitrous. So I'm in the same boat. This is my 5th season on my motor. It's going to need a refresh. And when it does, it's going to get more RPM put to it and a bigger nitrous kit, you know, so.
Where we're at, so my dad upgraded the engine in the boat. So that's, like I said, a 598. They put a set of Profiler Sniper X's on it, and it's got a much bigger cam in it, and it's got a big Sniper X intake. That motor made 753 on 87 octane. So the Dart 345s are sitting at the engine builders with nowhere to go. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna stick those on the van. So we're gonna stick the Dart 345s on it. We're gonna put a set of pistons in it, I think. You know, it's back to the whole time crunch thing. I don't have time to put pistons in it right now.
Right.
Because there's really no I'm talking with JE right now about putting something together, but there's really no off-the-shelf pistons that'll get me. I want to be around that 11-to-1 range.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nothing to get you there. You can get stuff down in the upper 9s, low 10 range, or you can have 13-to-1. And it's like if we were just going to do burnout stuff and I'm going to run it on methanol, fine, we can make it 13-to-1. Who cares? But I really enjoyed the drag and drive stuff. So making it run on pump gas is kind of if you keep it around 11-to-1, you can still do pump gas stuff.
Right.
You know, even into the 11.5, 12-to-1 range if you get fancy with a cam. But 13-to-1, you're going to struggle on an iron block to keep it to run on pump gas.
Yeah.
And I want to put it on E85.
And the 85 is just a hassle. I mean, it works and it's great, but for a drag and drive thing, I feel like that's a hassle.
It's tough because I have a good buddy of mine that does the drag and drive stuff, the Miata, the Turtle Miata. Mm-hmm. I've known Matt forever, and that's on E85. And he actually did a flex fuel sensor on it for the drag and drive stuff. He's like, it's just so hard to try and plan because you have the specific route to take. If you steer off that route, that's fine, but you have to go back and get back on the route where you got off. So it's not like you can bypass a section, go get fuel, and then jump back on somewhere else. No, if you drive 20 miles off the route to get fuel, you got to go back that 20 miles to get back on the route.
Yeah,
So
I saw it sounded like they were pretty strict with that route. I saw there was a post
Yeah.
where they were like, hey, the GPS is telling you to get on the freeway for this few miles. Don't do it.
No. And there's people, you watch and you'll just see a random guy standing on the side of the road and they're taking pictures. They're watching to make sure you're on the route. So it's serious, man. It's
Yeah.
and I don't know. Let's check the chat again real quick. The van is your image now. He wouldn't benefit from 2 more vans. Man, I don't have the money to build 2 more vans.
Dude, he's the plumber. He knows. You just got to do more plumbing jobs.
Right.
I'm just a broke plumber, man. No, honestly, we've got some great companies we're working with right now, which is why the van is so much better now than it was before. Partnering up with the companies we're working with has definitely helped us out.
No,
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, working with Holly. I mean, Holly owns like 76 companies in the automotive industry. So
Right.
all of it.
Those guys, like 90% of that van was built with Orlando. Yeah, so there's an Orlando.
Yeah, so are you familiar with this Miller's Ale House place?
Yeah, that's like 45 minutes from me.
So these guys, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Orlando Street Vans while we're on here, since you're in Orlando.
Yeah,
and these guys do these van night cruises
Oh,
all
nice.
the time.
Yeah.
So they would completely flip out if you cruise down there with your van. They'd love it. They're a good bunch of guys and girls.
Or girls, yeah. Send me that link on Instagram, and I'll definitely. I'm between Daytona and Orlando where I'm at. So like half hour from Daytona, like 45 minutes from Orlando.
Okay.
But I believe that address is where they used to do the World Street Nationals kickoff party. The World Street Nationals is the big, like it used to be considered a streetcar event, but it was never streetcars. It was all pro mods and stuff. But that ale house is where they used to do the pre-party.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I know exactly where that's at.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And like I said, they do it all the time. It's just like a hangout, cruise down for a couple hours and that's it. So
it's so fun to take like the van, like in the burnout stuff, everybody knows the plumber's crack van and the burnout stuff. But when you show up at like a drag strip or something, there's a ton of people who have no idea who the hell you are.
Right.
Same. We show up at one of those cruise-in nights with this thing. It's like, what the hell is that? That's what's fun. Like the whole element of surprise with everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't know what it was. I never, until Sick Week, I'd never seen the van. So I'm not a vanner. I mean, it's cool, but I'm not a vanner. So that was the first time I had seen it. It's neat. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's different.
And that is like, I even hate to say this because now I'm going to get shunned, but like, I'm not a van guy.
Oh, bad boy.
I've become the van guy. Like, I can appreciate him. Like I said, all of our work trucks from 84 to 2003, when they quit making that Dodge van, that's all we had were Dodge vans. And even when they came out with the Sprinter van from Dodge, we took that plunge, and that thing was a total turd. And the ProMaster is even worse. So now we're running, oddly enough, Chevy Express vans for work trucks. But, my parents had the old Dodge custom vans back in the day. I think everybody had those in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
But, I'm not by any means a van guy. Like, I can appreciate them. I think they're cool when, like, something like this is definitely different. It's so funny now, like, we took the van for a ride the other night with the boys, and it's like, the way I've got the cage and all set up, everything's set pretty far back. So, like, I'm sitting, if you pull up next to me, you really can't see me until you, like, lean forward. So we pull up to the stoplight, and of course, it's sitting there idling, and it's loud and obnoxious, and you see a car pull up, and they stop, and they creep up a little bit more, and then they stop, and they creep up a little more, and the next thing you know, he's, like, leaning in to see you, and it's like, now you know.
Nice.
You're looking at me.
Right, yeah. There's no casual glance.
Yeah. And I haven't even gotten to drive, other than Sick Week, we really haven't driven it a whole lot. Like, I've only driven it one other time. So.
Well, they do the one up here, too, Midwest Drags. You could see, you coordinate that with bringing your stuff up here to Indy, coordinate it all at the same time, leave your stuff up here.
And when is that?
I don't even know. I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
It's got to be summertime because you guys can't do nothing up there in the winter.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what sucks. Is like there's so much going on up north. I can't afford to drive back and forth all the time. And, like leaving my stuff up there is great if I can fly back and forth cheap. occasionally, like I live really close to Sanford Airport, and Allegiant flies in and out of there, and it's dirt cheap. But trying to find places that Allegiant flies into is tough. Flying out of Orlando sucks because it's an hour ride up there, and you spend a day in security. Sanford, you can literally get there 20 minutes before your flight takes off, jump on a plane, and fly out.
Yeah, we've got an airport like that too. It's like you go to Cleveland and you're in check forever. You go to Canton and it's like there's barely a person checking your ticket. So yeah.
Like if you're not checking a bag, like I can land in Sanford and be home in less than an hour. You can just walk off the plane, walk to your car, and you're out. So flying out of Orlando is not that easy. But I would like to do some more stuff up there in the summer. But again, when you got a family and stuff, and my kids are out of school, it's not fair to everybody for me to be gone all the time. So as much as I'd love to be doing it, I do want to go out on the boat on the weekends and hang out with the family. So
So does the family come to the burnout stuff? Do the kids get into that, or
it just depends. The Bradenton event everybody pretty much goes to. To try and do like Indy, or when they were doing Bristol, they went to Bristol the first year, they didn't the second year because they got to miss school. And I try to pull them out of school. I mean, the boys are in 6th grade now. So 6th grade is a big transition for them. So I really don't want to miss in school for this stuff. Bradenton, it's 2.5 hours. So they drive down Saturday morning. If my fiance will come down that. And she'll drive down Saturday. Like that event, I get done competing. We usually do pretty well down there. So we go at the end of the event and go get our money, and I jump in the truck and drive home. I'm usually home by like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. So all the other events, we crash at a hotel and then drive home the next day. But
that's cool.
Yeah, my parents go to pretty much all of them. Whether they fly there and then jump in and drive back with me, or fly there and fly out, but they're big supporters. They go to pretty much all the events with me.
Nice. Your kids wear your shirts to school and all proud and everything?
When they were in elementary school, we started like the plumber's crack shirt. It's like I even asked the principals, like, so like, do I just color in the crack? Like I don't know. So we did. We had shirts specific for school. We would just cover in to make the jeans look like they're a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
But now they wear. My kid will wear a plumber's crack hoodie every damn day. Like middle of summer, he's plumber's crack hoodie. He's like, hey bud, it's hot out. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's how my boys are. They love wearing my channel stuff, but it's funny because they do not like the van. My wife, nobody likes the van because it's obnoxious. They think it's scary and they just do not like it at all. So fortunately, my wife's got her own van, so she can, they just follow me in hers. But but they dig the merch, but not so much, the racing stuff. So
I just love it. My boys are like, can you pick me up from school? And it's like, I don't think I can. Like, I'm pretty sure I'll end up on a list if I do. Like my daughter loves the idea of the van, but it's loud and scary. And it's really not that loud with the exhaust on it. I've got Flowmaster Super 40s on it. It's actually pretty quiet until you dump it. It's got the electric cutouts on it.
Right.
It's not that loud, but she loves the idea of it. But I tell her, it's like every time we're getting ready to go somewhere, so we'll be walking out to the truck, and I'm like, hang on, I got to move my truck so we can get the van out. No, I don't want to take the van. Never ridden in it. Probably never ride it. She goes, I'm not getting in that thing. Because the wrap is just so out there.
Yeah.
Driveway. So, and it's like I want to put a custom plate on this thing, and I don't even know what to put. We're going to put plumber's crack. It's like, we should put no candy on the license plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
If you have van questions about like the do's and don'ts of vanning, just ask Wayne, because every like joke, like the mystery machine and all the things, he actually doesn't like all those jokes. So maybe maybe he could educate you on all the things that everybody does, and you won't be that guy.
Right.
You look up, like if you go on Wikipedia and look up Vanner, I'm pretty sure a picture of him pops. Textbook Vanner. That's a guy that looks like a Vanner. You see him walking around the lot, you know which car he's going to.
Right. It's funny because years ago I had, more of a corporate type job. So I was like super clean cut and always wearing like, button downs and everything. But I would still like my daily driver was a custom van, so it was always like this funny juxtaposition. It was like I was the last guy you thought getting out of that. Now I just embrace it. So
yeah.
I've been
Like-
doing vans my whole life. I mean, I grew up doing it. You know, my parents were vanners, so it's just what I
Yeah.
know. You
I
know,
think everybody's parents were vanners in the 90s.
yeah,
Like every
yeah,
van in the 90s.
That's actually how
Like,
Wayne got here from
Yeah.
a van.
No one wanted to make that transition to the minivans. Once they got
Right.
rid of the big vans, the minivans aren't cool. We ain't doing other than the old Caravan with the turbo motor in it. The old 2.2
Yeah.
turbo, 5 turbos, those were cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because 10 years ago it was a joke and nobody wanted one. Now they're the most sought after things ever. I mean,
So
the
hard for me
prices are ridiculous.
Yeah. It was so hard for me to find that Dodge van I got. You either got to buy one that's just rotted out, and I was really adamant I want a cargo van. I don't want a passenger van because I don't want a bunch of windows. Like for us, I wanted to make it look like a work truck. So having a bunch of windows and stuff in there is really not what I wanted. And to find, if somebody bought a cargo van, they were buying it to work out of. So to find one that's not beat to hell or rusted out,
Right.
it's hen's teeth. You can't find them. So when I found this one, I went down there and actually bought it in Sarasota and got it home. And I started looking, man, this thing's got a lot of rust in the roof. And we were like pretty far along getting the engine and stuff set in there. And it wasn't like 2 weeks later, another one pops up and it was 10 times as nice as mine. And it was cheaper and it had a 318. And I was like, damn. Just the time crunch. I was like, I would rather just abandon this thing. But we had to get it done, and then now with the wrap and stuff on there, I mean that's expensive to do that. So like it's not like the other van. It was like a couple $100. We throw new graphics on. It's not a big deal. Swap it all over. I don't want to have to pay to wrap this thing again.
Yeah.
So,
No, they killed it with that wrap. That wrap's amazing.
and that's 100% of them. Like I had the original wrap, and I said, I want to be outrageous now. I said, you guys have free reign to do whatever you want. Like, what do you want in there? I said, I don't care. It was like, I've seen what you guys do. They do all of Cletus's stuff. And I was like, man, I know you guys can just knock it out of the park. So you've got free reign. Do what you want. I was like, the name. I'm good with that. I was like, I don't care. I'm completely prepared to abandon the design we have now. I had no idea what they're going to send me. And they sent me a couple proofs, and they had this one. I don't think I ever sent you that. Let me see if I can send it to you real quick. Try and find it. Jump on my phone real quick. If I can find the original proofs they had sent me. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, that the plumber leaning over, like you don't even notice at first. You're not sure what it is, and then when you look at it, you're like, that is really detailed.
Like in the guy, he hand drew like most of that. I know they
Really?
did some computer, but a lot of it, like all the original. I just sent you the thing. I don't know if you can upload it or not. All of the original proofs that I had gotten were hand drawn, and then they digitized it, I guess. But so those were the original proofs they had sent me. I don't know if you can transfer them over there or not.
Let me see what I can do. I'm not promising anything.
They called me up and they're like, "Hey, this is what we came up with."
You just right click and save the
I
desktop.
didn't even see the first one. They're like, "We really hope you wanted to do the first one." And I saw it, I was like, "Dude, there's no way." Like I'm gonna drive this thing on the road. I said, I'm not putting that on there. Like that is so out there. But then I started looking at the other ones, and it's like there's really nothing that ties the name in. Let's see what we got here. Broken plumbing doesn't go together. Sure it does. Broken
Can you
plumbing
see
goes
that?
together. Let's see.
I don't know if it's sharing or not.
No, nothing yet.
Okay. I'm not sure. But
Together. It does when you got 4 kids and hobbies that exceed your pay. Yeah,
right.
I think it's cheaper to be a drug addict at this point.
Yeah. It's funny because and I wish I could hold on. Let me see if I can save this and
Yeah, just right click save it and then open it that way. Yeah, I'm pretty sure doing drugs would be cheaper and easier, and even it might even be easier on your family life, honestly.
For sure. Yeah, the whole thing was always like, get your kids interested in cars and they'll never have money to do drugs. That's the facts. I think that's why my parents, if anybody that's tuning in now, I got my Camaro when I was 13. And the deal was like they would foot the bill for half. If I came up with my half, they would pay for half. And as long as I had good grades, we were going to go to the track and we would get to race. And if I had bad grades, the car was going to get parked. And the other big rule was if they ever found out I was street racing, that car was gone.
Ooh, yeah, you don't want to come up here then.
Yeah, you don't hang out with us.
And it wasn't as popular back then as it is now. Like street racing is huge now.
Yeah.
And I say it wasn't as popular. It was as popular, but it wasn't as public. You know, the guys that were doing it, it was all guys in their late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys would show up at the spot and they would race. And if the cops showed up, they just sit there and the cops were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like, "We're racing." "Okay, we'll go home." And
Right.
You can't do that. "Okay, go home." Then it became, as soon as Fast and the Furious came out, then it was a cop show up, everybody scatters, and that was half the problem is people take off and run into people in the parking lot. It's like
Right.
it's half the battle. I mean, all the guys that I knew that were hardcore street racers are like, yeah, if the cops show up, you just sit there. Like, unless they catch you in the act, they're not going to do anything anyways. It's like, even if they catch you in the act, if you pull over and stop, there's a good chance they're just going to tell you to go home. You're out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night. You're not really bothering anybody.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it definitely, you know, the Hollywood glorification, you know, changes things, and then people just show up and they just think, you know, and then, you know, now everybody mixes, you know, street racing with the takeover stuff, and you know, which actually might be more your thing. You take that thing out and whip it around some intersections and really go viral.
I have to take the Hellcat for that. You got to take the Hellcat.
Yes.
Every takeover has a Hellcat in it or a Scat Pack.
Absolutely.
I thought they were all base model V6s, to be honest with you.
It's Scat Packs. It's up down Scat Packs is usually what it is. Sorry for any fat guy watching this, but no.
Yeah.
No,
cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else anything we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I think we're good, man.
And you mostly do Instagram. You don't have like a YouTube, do you?
What's funny is like I have a YouTube and there's like 70-something hundred followers on there, but I don't do nothing with it. Like I upload. Well, what it was is like we got all kinds of cool stuff, man. Like I have a little Disney boat that I got when I was like 11 or 12 years old, and we've got a 25 horse on it. And had it, oddly enough, had that thing till it was like 2005 or so, and I sold it. And we bought another one for my kids when they got old enough, and they were running around. My dad got online one day, and it was for sale in our town. My original boat still had the numbers on it, the stickers on it. My name was still on it, and the trailer was still registered to my dad.
Oh, wow.
And it was in the same town. I think we bought it back for $1,000, and the thing is cool as hell. And my dad's like, we're just never going to sell it again. And I posted a video of one of my boys running that thing. And with him in it, he's like 80 pounds. At the time, he was like 80 pounds. And he floors it in a boat, like launches out of the water. And that video got like 4 million views.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I got a ton of following from that, but I just don't do anything with YouTube. And like I'm going to do more of it this year. We're going to really try and apply ourselves on the social media end of things, start doing some videos, some podcasts every now and then. I know we're going to do another podcast. I think we're supposed to do something just before Cletus and Cars or Burnout Rivals this time with Cooper, the Cooper Bugatti one. I think we're going to do like a Burnout pre-show or something, or pre-game. So
that's cool.
Try and do some more of this stuff. Try and, you can make a career out of it if you actually apply yourself. So
yeah.
I need to down on it and do a little more.
Yeah.
You said your kids are in like 6th grade. Is there any interest in them trying to do the video portion of it? They can become YouTube famous.
It's just such a weird thing, man. Like trying to keep your kids off the internet, but it's like you can't. There's a lot of kids that are like, I know I'm doing these events. You get to know a lot of these people, a lot of the influencers and the YouTubers that are huge, and some of them have their kids on the show and they have like an alter ego for them. They don't use the real names. Some of them have their kids on the show and they are who they are. What works for some, I don't know. I know my boys would be interested in doing it. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and then I've got a My son will be 2 in March.
Nice. Yeah, I just wonder, like, the older ones, if they would be like, from a production standpoint, like it could be, they'll learn things, they'll learn technology and things like that. So they'll learn things from it, and then, maybe it helps you guys take off.
They can probably edit better videos than I am. They're a lot better than I am already.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
No, we need to get together. So if you're ever down here, if I'm ever up there, we need to. As soon as I
Oh yeah.
I've said my van is like a slower, crappier version of yours. Like, it was like, oh, is there any other van? Like, you have to have the fastest van. Like, no. Hurricane. You guys got the fastest.
And I don't, but it's just, yeah. But there's a small handful. I mean, you're talking about realistically a dozen vans across the country that are, 11 seconds or lower. So it's a pretty small group, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot more people smarter than us.
Yeah, I just got this weird dude that lives like 5 minutes from my house and does burnouts past my house. It's pretty weird.
The other thing is, like, everyone always thinks that I'm the grandpa driving. Like, my fiance drives, I look over and I'm like, we're doing 90 miles an hour on the interstate. I'm the guy that's cruising down the road 70 miles an hour. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, why do you do the stuff you do out there and then you drive so slow on the road? It's like, because I'd rather not pay for tickets. I want to buy more parts.
Right. Yeah, I always look at it like I'm saving up credits, because I'm the same way.
Yep.
I'm like Mr. Cruise Control, but I'm like, I got my credits saved up. So when we go out and do dumb stuff on the street, it's my
like,
one time.
I've been pulled over 6 times in my life. 4 times was on a 50cc scooter. Over 4 times for riding with no eye protection. And every time I pulled you over, it's like, hey, I pulled you over. It's like, no. It's like, you don't have eye protection. Like, you have to have eye protection on a scooter? And it worked 4 times. I never got busted. But no, I've never been ticketed anything fast. My first ticket was in one of our damn work vans, in a 94 Dodge work van for rolling a stop sign. I got a ticket for that, and I think I got a seatbelt ticket one time, and that's it. I've never gotten any other tickets. Not that I haven't done dumb things, I just haven't done dumb things in cops.
Didn't get caught, right? Exactly.
No.
I watched Wayne do some dumb things recently. So at our spot where we dig race and stuff, we go there. So obviously you're aware Wayne's van's loud. So we have a spot we go to, and like none of our cars are that crazy. Like you said, like a lot of turbo cars and stuff like that.
Sure.
Well, they're reasonable loud, Well, he goes down there in the middle of the night, makes a pass, does like a full rip. I mean, shakes like the next zip code over, and comes back, laps it, does another freaking pass, comes back, parks. And then we see somebody pulling down the street. We're like, oh, that's not good. The freaking cop pulls up. He's like, well, we saw you do the first pass, and we didn't think you'd do that. And then you went around and did it again.
Like, if we saw you do it once, it would have been fine. But then you literally, it's like you're mocking us at this point.
Right.
That's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, they let him go. I think they might have been just confused. They're like, is this really what's going on?
If you had your van set up like mine, where you have quiet exhaust and then dumps on it, you could get away with it. Like, no one's gonna look at it. That van's definitely doing. Like, my van, the rap is so outrageous. People look at it as like, yeah, this guy's up to no good all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yours could look like just a regular old street van.
Yeah. Not my style.
Somebody in the comments asking, the first Burnout Rivals is first weekend of April, and that is in Bradenton.
Nice.
That's the first one, and I think they're like almost sold out on that already. That's gonna be a crazy event.
Cool. Michael wants you to put a Godzilla engine in the van.
I'm just a Ford guy, man. I want to be. I don't even know that I would do a Godzilla. That Coyote motor is just insane.
It's pretty impressive.
That thing is next level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that, and then it's got a 10-speed transmission, so it's just always in gear.
It worked, man.
Yeah.
The 10 speeds, even the 6-speed autos were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Justin over at VMP, I've known him forever. They had one of their Coyote cars, I think it was a 6-speed auto. I think that thing went in the 8s with like stock converter, stock exhaust, just like one of their blower setups.
Yep.
Like stock bottom end with a VMP blower package, went in the 8s. It's like, damn, like, those motors are really impressive.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that hurt the Coyote stuff early on was just price and availability because it's never been the quality of the engine.
No, the same thing with the Dodge. There's really no aftermarket, and all the Dodge stuff's expensive. Like,
Yep.
that's why you don't see a lot of the late model Hemi stuff, because they're just expensive. The build's expensive to get parts. The aftermarket support's just not there.
Which is weird though, just like the Coyote stuff, like the block's great, crank's great, heads are amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, like people just don't want to build the engines, you know, they don't want to do rods and pistons, but you can go very fast on the Hemi stuff with
It's
minimal
gonna
mods.
be with the LS because they made so many of them, and
Yes.
you can buy them for nothing.
Yep.
Like the 6 so I got the LS that I have is now 403 inch, but like I bought that as an LQ4 6 liter. I think I paid $450 for it, like complete. Right? Like they're not expensive. They're not expensive engines to get, and they're strong. I think the Coyote is probably a better engine, but cost wise, dollar for dollar, it's really tough to beat an LS.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's just the availability, the pricing, all that, you know. I think that anybody that has done all of them will probably tell you the Coyote is definitely better. It's just the cost of entry is just higher and you got to be willing to do it.
Yeah. And I've told everybody, it's like, when you start getting into the competitive, like Ultra Street and X275, it's all the same. It doesn't matter
at that point.
Block, a small block. Once you start getting in the aftermarket block, an aftermarket rotating assembly, an aftermarket block is going to cost you between $3,000 and $5,000. A good rotating assembly is going to cost you the same. It's going to cost you $25,000, $30,000 to build a good engine. It really doesn't matter what you do.
Yep,
if you're trying to build something for 800 horse or less, the LS is like, it's tough to beat that for the money.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. You have to just not want to be the LS guy. Like you have to really, really put effort into, I don't want to do an LS because it's difficult, And again, I've been Mopar my whole life and, put the Chevy in this van and I always get crap for it, but it's like dollars per horsepower. Like you can't build a big block Mopar like that. You just can't,
And I haven't followed it in so long, but like back then there wasn't really good support for Mopar heads. You can get into the old, the old Indy heads.
Yeah.
Indy heads were real popular, but there just wasn't the support. Like big block Chevy, you can get parts for everything.
Right. Well, and even like my dad's, my dad's truck's a big block Mopar and he's got good Indy heads on it. But even as good as those heads are, they don't flow anywhere near what a big block Chevy head flows. I mean, you got to go to a big one or B1, and then the ports are this big, and you can't. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah, it's the same with the LS. Like my small block for what it was, that was a 383 cubic inch. It was 12-to-1. It had AFR 227s on it. It had a camshaft like 700 lift, a big single plane, and it made like 550 or 600 horse. It's like the factory LS cylinder heads flow with those 227s flow.
Yeah.
Like you can like my 403 that I have next to nothing tied up in will kick the hell out of my old small block Chevy. It'll run on pump gas. Let's see, I got another comment here. What are they saying on here? Our pit crew. Oh, B1 has yeah. I don't follow a lot of all my stuff. My daily driver is a 25. It's a 3500 Dodge. My fiance drives a Durango. My dad's got a 2500 Ram. We got the Hellcat. My brother's got a 2500. Like it's all we drive are Dodges. Like for our daily stuff is all Dodge stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's just like a Dodge people thing. Dodge people are just Dodge people. Like their wife will have a Town and Country. They'll have a Dodge Ram truck. The race car is a Dodge. Like they got Dodge tattoos. Like
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I think that's just how Dodge people are, which is cool. You got brand loyalty, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I back to though, like once you get to a certain level, it's just numbers and horsepower. It doesn't matter who made that block because that block was never in a production car anyways. It doesn't. Why does it matter?
So you start trying to build something to go max effort and trying to chase those classes and whatnot. The engines all cost the same, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what just happened. Oh, you know what? I wonder if my camera's dying. That might be our cue.
Time to clunk out.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. We'll do it again after you win your next burnout event, and
it may be a little while. These guys, all the Australians are flying over. They're gonna come kick the hell out of us this year. We're gonna give them our best shot though.
Yep, we're rooting for you,
Cool.
man. Definitely
All right.
rooting for you.
Yeah. Good luck, buddy. Good talking to you.
Thanks, man. We'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye.